think that you could only spend $25 and eat for an entire week, all your meals with the protein included? Welcome back to the channel. In this week's episode, we are talking about a little challenge that I did recently at the grocery store. So the challenge was creating a menu, all meals and snacks, and only spending $25. $25 in the grocery store today is not a lot of money. And when I took this challenge, the first thing I thought of, it's got to be hot dogs, because I don't think I could eat meat with that budget. It's just extremely low. So anyways, I'm excited to share how it turned out with you guys. So let's get going. Okay, so we're here at Winco, which is the cheapest market in my area right now that I can think of. And we are going to get groceries for a week. And we're going to be under $30. We're looking at like $4 a day is our target. So I have a plan of like $5 for breakfast, $5 for lunch, and then $5 for protein and $5 for miscellaneous, or $10 for miscellaneous stuff ish. So we'll see how that goes. And then we'll also scope out some of what the bargains are this week and maybe make some adjustments on the fly. So I'm anticipating this taking a little bit longer to grocery shop with such a small budget, but I am confident with the use of their bulk section and some of their deals that we're going to be able to do this. So let's head in and see what put some of the ingredients away. Here's some of the dry goods. Now, the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to make my actual menu plan for the week to see if there's anything that I could food prep for the week ahead of time. Now, initially, I thought I was going to do kind of lots of rice, but then those potatoes got on sale for 48 cents a bag, so that changed everything. And I was thinking that that's great because I could probably make some homemade potato chips, which I am kind of getting like a snack food like that. And so with that big bag of potatoes, I should be able to do that. Okay, I made my meal plan. I mentioned that I planned on rice, but it ended up being potatoes and black potatoes for only 48 cents because they're actually very, very flexible. And I can make a snack I can make some chips with these as well. And then the strawberries I didn't know were a good deal. And then corn, because Winco didn't have an app. So I didn't know that these things were going to be a great deal. That's a store that you just kind of have to go to and see what they have on sale. So I'll make it into what I made.
So starting with some food prep this week, I'm going to make some strawberry oatmeal. So I started by cutting up some of the best looking strawberries into small pieces that would go into some oatmeal. And then I added some sugar. I had bought that in the Winco bulk section. I used 3 teaspoons because I planned on making like 3 or 4 bowls of oatmeal. And then I mixed that in. The strawberries honestly weren't that sweet, so I put that extra sugar in. And then I just set that little bowl aside and went on to making my oatmeal. So boil some water, add the oatmeal in, just following the directions on the oatmeal package. Make it how you like, if you like more water or less. I like to follow the exact instructions on there. Now, I didn't have any regular salt, so I just omitted that part of the recipe. And I cooked that just for a couple of minutes, and then I went ahead and added my strawberries in. I wanted the oatmeal to really get the flavor of the strawberries, so I wanted them to cook together for a little bit, and just cooked until it got thicker. And then once it cooled for just a few minutes, I put it in 3 Tupperware containers that I would put in the fridge, and then that would make it an easy breakfast for the week. The second thing I wanted to food prep was the potato chips. I have not made them in a long time, so I was going to do a couple experiments. So I started by washing the potatoes, chopping them real thin, and then they were cheap potatoes, so they had some spots on them, so I went ahead and trimmed them up. You could have peeled the potatoes if you want to. I like potato skins, so I left them on and got those little dark spots off of there. And then one recipe I had found said to soak them to try to get the starch off. So I soaked them in some water, and then I drained them off, and then I just let them sit there for a minute and kind of drain some of that water off after soaking. And then I just said I better put them on a paper towel because they still were pretty wet, and I didn't want to put them in the oven to steam. I really wanted them to crisp up. So I laid them out on a paper towel to get them kind of dried off. Now, the second batch I made of these later in the week, I did not do all of this work, and they turned out just as well. So this is optional. This is following the directions from a recipe, but like I said, I skipped all of this washing and drying step the next time, and they were totally fine. Maybe they took a little longer to cook, but they were fine. So I patted them off, tried to get off as much liquid as I could, and then I took some of my margarine and I melted in the microwave, and then I wanted to coat those potatoes with the margarine. So I put them in a baggie. This seemed to be the best way. I did first try to dip them in, but it was just using up way too much margarine, and they were getting pretty soaked in margarine. So that didn't work out. The baggie worked out great and got a nice even coat on the potatoes. And then I just laid them as thin as I could on a cookie sheet and put them in the oven at 400 degrees. And I just watched them until they started to brown. It ended up being that they kind of browned at different times. So I would take them out, take off the chips that were done and crispy, and then I would put them back in the oven until eventually, the majority of them were pretty crispy. And then I let them cool and put them in a bag. I did buy some like Lowry's type of like a seasoned salt in the bulk section at Winco. So that's how I seasoned them. I just put a little bit in the bag, zipped the bag up, and then tossed them around. And these turned out to be really, really good. The family really liked them. And so they were a great snack for the week. So day one for breakfast, we started out with a bowl of that oatmeal that we had made. And then for lunch, we made a good old PB&J with the peanut butter and jam that we had bought at the store. And then put a little side of potato chips with that. For a snack, we did a banana with a spoonful of peanut butter, a super yummy snack. And then for dinner, the plan was some baked chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, and corn. So we started by taking a frozen chicken breast. If you guys watch me, you know that I'm really bad about defrosting chicken. So I just did it frozen, put some Lowry's on it, and then moved on to cleaning my vegetables. So I cleaned the corn up, and then the potatoes. I did peel them because I was going to mash them, cut them up, put them in some cold water to cook, and then the corn was getting ready to cook that. I did break it in half because I'm going to do dinner and some leftovers. So I boiled some water, and then I'm just putting some sugar in because that's a little trick I learned years ago, that you just boil the water, put the sugar in, throw your corn in, and then you put a lid on it and turn the heat off and just set it aside. This results in really sweet, crispy corn. Then check the potatoes. They were looking pretty good, falling right off of the fork, ready to be mashed. So once I confirmed those were done, drained them, threw in a little bit of margarine that I had, and then got that mashed up. Let that margarine melt into there. And then when they were mostly mashed up, I put a little bit of milk in there just to make them extra creamy. And I just mashed those up and then just kept stirring until they were the right consistency that I like. And then once that was done, we needed to move on to our gravy. So set that aside, and then some water in a little pan. You could use a saucepan. I just happen to use this one. And then with the chicken gravy mix, this stuff is super great, especially if you're not good at making gravy. It's literally just water and gravy. Now you do want to put the gravy mix in cold water, otherwise it will get lumpy. And so then you just turn it on low and just stir it until it is thick like you want. And then time to plate. So my chicken was done, and like I mentioned, I was going to use half of this for a lunch. So I cut my chicken breast in half and then put half of it in the Tupperware for tomorrow. And then just put my mashed potatoes. I split it between the two containers, and those were really yummy potatoes. They're such a good, filling thing for a dinner. So a little bit of corn. The corn turned out so good. It's such a good trick with the sugar in the water. And then I didn't have seasoning for my potatoes when I was cooking them, so I'm really relying on the salty gravy to be like a good topping, and then also on the chicken. So that ended up being a really nice, yummy, wholesome dinner, very filling and satisfying because it was like comfort food. So that was a really good end to day one of the challenge. So for day two, for breakfast number 2, I did some peanut butter toast with a banana. And then for lunch, I had my leftovers from dinner last night. Those were delicious, reheated. Dinner number 2 was spaghetti using the sauce mix that I got at Winco. So I started by opening a couple small cans of the tomato sauce, and those were only 20 cents each. So this was a pretty good deal for spaghetti sauce. Dump those in a pan with the sauce mix and then just stirred it up. It was really super simple. It didn't have more ingredients than that. And that sauce mix was surprisingly very good. I would do that again in a pinch if I didn't have time to make it from homemade. And then obviously just boil some pasta. I did 2 servings worth of pasta because I knew I was going to do a second meal with it. And I cooked that until the pasta was al dente. I like to finish my spaghetti in the actual sauce. So I just put it in the saucepan, allowed some of that extra water to get in there. There's nothing wrong with that. You can always add some of that pasta water in too if you needed to. And then I just cooked it on low until the pasta was the right texture that I like. And then also that sauce had thickened up. So there you go. It was really good, yummy spaghetti and plenty saucy, really good. So with that, I served some of the frozen vegetables I bought and then just some bread and butter. And like I mentioned, I did do 2 servings of spaghetti, so I put the extra spaghetti in the fridge for another meal another time. So on to day 3, I had another day of oatmeal for breakfast, and then for lunch I had that spaghetti from the previous night, and for a snack I had some of those yummy potato chips and a couple of strawberries that I had. Dinner number 3 was going to be a chicken ramen stir fry, so I started by boiling the noodles for the ramen just in some plain water. I did set the seasoning packet over to the side. I set that on a back burner and then moved on to a frying pan with some margarine. That was the fat I had bought. That was my oil that I chose when I was shopping. So I used margarine as much as I could as an oil, and it works really good as an oil. So I melted that into the fry pan, and then into that was one chicken breast. Of course, I didn't defrost it. I'm so bad about that. But it is easier to cut when it is frozen. So cut that up and then cooked the chicken all the way. I didn't, you're not going to cook it too long, so you want to make sure that the chicken is done all the way. And then into that, I added about 1 cup of frozen mixed vegetables, put that in there, and then I just cooked those until the vegetables were no longer frozen. It did produce quite a bit of liquid, as you see, but that was fine because I need that for the sauce. So in that, I put the Oriental seasoning mix. I think it was like a soy flavor, or maybe Oriental, I don't know. So that made a nice sauce, and then I put the ramen in there, and then the idea was to kind of cook it all together so that the noodles absorbed some of that liquid and that they were flavored, and just cooked that. Everything's cooked, you're just trying to get it to meld in, absorb some of that liquid. And so that's a really good stir fry. It's a really good lunch too. And so that's what I had for dinner number 3. Day number 4, and another bowl of that oatmeal, followed by a lunch of a PBJ and some more of those yummy potato chips. And for dinner, I did some chicken alfredo. So I started by making the alfredo sauce, and I'm using that sauce packet that I got at Winco, just following the directions on there, and they're pretty easy. I make this little packet pretty often, actually. It's very handy, and it's way less expensive than a jar of alfredo. So I melted the margarine, put the milk in according to the packet directions, and then poured the packet in there. I use a whisk to get this all mixed up so that I don't end up with any lumps of that powder in the sauce. And so, like I said, super simple. Just add that, mix it. You just cook it on low until it's thick, like you would expect Alfredo sauce to be. Move it over to the side. And then I moved on to making my chicken. So once again, using that margarine as my fat in the fry pan. Once again, a partially frozen chicken breast that I cut into, decent bite-sized pieces. A little bit of that seasoned salt that I got from the bulk section. And then just sauteed the chicken until it was nice and done and a little bit browned. And then I added the Alfredo sauce in there. So there's my sauce that I'm going to have for my chicken Alfredo. And then I made some spaghetti and used that as my pasta. And when that was done, I drained it, and then I put the sauce in. And I did end up making too much pasta for that amount of sauce. So to remedy that, I did end up putting some margarine in it. And so that worked out good. It tasted really good. It wasn't as Alfredo-y as I would have liked it, but it was pretty good. And it made a nice little dinner with some veggies and some little bread and butter. And I did have enough chicken Alfredo to do a second meal. So I saved that for a second meal. Day 5, and we made some more oatmeal, just plain this time. And then for lunch, we had another PB&J. And then for snack, some more of those potato chips. I tell you, those were so yummy. Very, very good little snack. Keeping with the potato theme for dinner, I was going to make some potato soup. So I started by boiling a few of the potatoes that I had left. And then I did have a couple pieces of bread that I decided I was going to make a little bit of croutons for my soup topper since I didn't have any crackers. So I just started by putting some margarine on both sides of the bread and then just chopping those into little like big crouton sizes. Put them on a baking sheet. They weren't lovely, but they tasted good in the end. Put those on the baking sheet and then put those in the oven until they got nice and brown. And there was just a few of them because I was thinking like 2 bowls of soup. So I thought 2 pieces would be sufficient for that. So in the oven they go, and I think I cooked those, I don't know, like 400, and I just watched them until they were done. And then I had that second ear of corn. So I started by getting all of the kernels off of the cob. And those not pre-cooked. It was just cleaned and husked and everything like that. Once the potatoes were done, I mashed them just a little bit, just like a light mash, because I didn't want them to be total mush, threw the corn in there. And then I took that country gravy mix packet. So I went with this method because that would give me some thickening as well as seasoning. And that called for some milk. And then I just added more milk until it was like a soupy consistency, kind of on the watery side at first, because I knew that the gravy mix would thicken it up. And I just cooked it until it looked like it should, as far as like a potato chowder soup type of thing. So that was meal number 5, a potato corn chowder, and this was really good. And I did have extras of this. That was a pretty big pot of potato soup. It's day number 6, and we are starting breakfast with some peanut butter toast, and for lunch, another PBJ. And for dinner, I was feeling lazy, so I pulled out that leftover chicken alfredo, and that's what I had for dinner on day number 6. It's day number 7. For breakfast, I had some more oatmeal with some milk. For lunch, a PBJ, some more potato chips. And then for dinner, I had that leftover corn potato chowder with some of the croutons that I saved for that. And that was actually really good, reheated. So that's what I ended up making in my $25 challenge. I did still have ingredients left. I had some chicken left, oatmeal, sugar, peanut butter jam. I had some margarine left, and then I did have some frozen vegetables left. And then when I look back on it, I thought about a couple of things I would have done differently. I would have purchased some black pepper. I don't know why I forgot about that. I would have bought less sugar. I didn't really need that much sugar. I don't normally use a ton of it, and I just used it for oatmeal and the corn. I would have also used up the rest of that chicken breast. I would have probably also maybe done peanut butter in the oatmeal to add some more protein. And that was really all I could think of what I would have done differently. But overall, I think it was definitely a win. I think it was pretty good for only $25.